figure out how to unmute. You'd think I'd have unmute like just a reaction, not a thought process of what did I do? Sorry about that. So alrighty. So crappy to happy, 1 to 10. I'm probably at an 8 because we're getting past noon now on Friday. Maybe a 7 at 7 a.m. and now it's moving up to 8 because it's coming closer. Yeah, so good week. Busy week. We're doing a lot of evaluation pieces, being evaluated, doing evaluations, getting those meetings done. And I'm just thinking about our evals for ECFE for the spring, just thinking about what do we want those to look like. And so, yeah, working on that stuff. So that seems like, wow, it's going to come faster than I expect. So I'm going to choose Carissa.
Ask hard questions. Probably a 5 or 6 at least. It's been a pretty good week, though. It's been a busy week. We had conferences, our preschool classes are doing conferences, so I had to hang out Tuesday night and Thursday night, which I teach the night class on Thursday anyway. Tomorrow morning is our Touch a Truck event, so I get to get up early and come back again. So that's reducing my number a little bit, but otherwise it's been a good week. I picked, if you have not gone, because I missed the beginning, Becca.
I did go. Pick again.
Pick again. Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie. I just jumped on. So I am the parent educator in Jordan, Minnesota. And what else are we supposed to say?
So we're doing a 1 through 7 crappy to happy scale. And so with 1 being that you're feeling crappy and 7 is that you're feeling happy. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I would say about a 6. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Sarah, have you gone? Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I did go.
Okay. Lorraine.
Hello, I'm Lorraine and retired parent educator from Wilmer. And I would say 6 or a 7. And I shared in the chat, I had went out for drinks with ECFE mom because I'm no longer her parent educator. And she is doing a podcast with a friend called 2 Moms, 2 Drinks In. And it's so fun. And they're really straightforward about saying, we're not here to give advice. We're here to give support. And I think it would be a fun resource for you to share because they're 2 Minnesota moms who are you can relate to them. One is a stay-at-home mom and one is a working mom. So they give a nice, just a nice balance. And I just think they're so relatable. And I've been binging the podcast. They started in January and I kept meaning to listen and I'm binging it and enjoying it. And I don't have little kids right now. So, but it's just those connections that we build in ECFE and then seeing moms grow. And so I will pick Abby because she's one of my ECFE moms and she's growing.
Yeah, this is so fun that Lorraine's here. So yeah, and I was supposed to go to drinks with them, but then I got strep throat. So my week has been kind of crappy. And I'm still not feeling great. So yeah, I don't know how that's going around, I guess, apparently, and I was the lucky one to get it. So yeah, other than that, my week has been good. I agree with Sarah. I'm sick of like sweatshirts and winter coats. Like, why am I still wearing this? But other than that, oh, and I got to watch Nikki this morning do a class, so that was really fun. And I have, next week, I will be done with my license, so that's exciting too. But I'm also sad because it's been fun to learn from everybody at the U. So I will do Nancy.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Nancy Trahey, and I work for Albany School District. I retired in June, but I'm still doing parent education. And my classes went really well this week. Fridays are my day off, so I missed last week and this week because I'm like, oh, I can just go work out at the Y. And then it's all of a sudden it's 12 o'clock and I think I have someplace I wanted to be. But I am not just a 7, I am a 10 this week because our grandsons came home from the NICU and I got to meet them and hold them. We all grandparents did on Sunday. Yep, it's been a big, they were there in the NICU almost a month. So, and we couldn't see or hold them during that time. It was just photographs. So that's very exciting. And it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. I would say a 10 or 100. I don't know, something above 7. 7's not high enough. And I don't think Ellen is gone yet.
That's very exciting, Nancy. Congratulations on being able to see your babies. Yeah, I'm in the car. I'm heading home. Week went really well. I'm probably like a 5 or 6. I only have 4 weeks left. We're done the Friday before Memorial Day. And it's always kind of a freeing time of year. I'm always like, whoa, I don't have much planning left to do. Just feels really good. But I also like start to feel that, like, I don't know, parent educator slide where I just get kind of not lazy, but I'm just like, I'm ready to be done. So trying to finish out the year with the same energy that I started it with. So, and I can't see because I'm driving and I have absolutely no idea who's here, who's gone. So someone's going to have to pick for me. Thank you.
I'll pick Nikki. Free.
Can go. Thank you. Nikki Murphy, Robbinsdale Area Schools. I would say I'm happy. I don't know, maybe a 6. It's been a good week. It's been a busy week. I actually, last week we were in a professional development and I tried to get on and it just so much was happening in my room. I eventually just clicked off. I'm like, I can't be here. So that makes me happy this week because I am just kind of taking a break right now. And I'm fully present and happy to be here with everybody. And I wanted to say to Becca, I feel you, like over the course of the year and the 2 years having, my oldest is the one that sometimes we are they're just navigating a lot of strong feelings. And the one thing that I wanted to share and why I bring it up is because what I always tell her is that it's okay in the short term because we are on good footing and I'm in this for the long haul. I want to know you and love you and nurture you and like be connected forever. And so I hope it adds a little bit of perspective in terms of we have, like you said, we have a hard week or a hard month or a hard year. But we are in this, right, for the long haul, and it's about our relationship forever. So yeah, I feel you. And I think Kelly, right?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. I wasn't sure how the internet was here. We had a good week. We're dealing with some plumbing issues, but other than that, it was good. So I will say a 6.
Great. And Greta, you went. Did you go? You did go. Okay, great. Well, I think that's everybody then. I'm at a 7. No, I'll do 6. It's gray. It's like gray and yucky outside, but today's the last day of my husband's work. So he's retiring. And it's all good. We're having friends over. We played this game called Dutch Blitz. Have you played that? It is so much fun. So we're going to play that tonight, and I have a few little surprises for him that my neighbors are in on, and so it's good, and it's been a good week. It's been a really fun week playing with kitties, and I watched a spay operation, 2 spay operations for female cats, obviously. and absolutely fascinating, absolutely fascinating. It's just- I know the things I get, that interest me.
She must be retired.
I am with you on Dutch Blitz. I'm not quite with you on the operation.
It was just really interesting, I mean, for something that important, and just to see the reproductive system of another animal. And like, I'm one who watches surgery videos on YouTube. So anyway, but it's very fulfilling work, and I really like the people there, and everything. And also, I've been writing a number of letters of recommendations for former students, and just to kind of see my well, what are they called? What are they called when somebody is like a child, but they're not your child? It's not a stepchild. It's
A fledgling. That's what I call them. They're like
fledgling.
fledglings out of the nest.
There you go. Yes, to see my fledglings do so well, and like not at all surprising, and come up to me at Aldi, and especially after masks and everything. Anyway, so yeah, so it's all good.
Susan, what organization do you do the kitties with?
Feline Rescue, that's in St. Paul. And I have sort of elevated my role, or changed my role from cleaning out, anyway, I help with veterinary services. So when they come in all Tuesday afternoon, they do spays and neuters and intake exams. And and I learned how to do a feline leukemia test, and check for fleas, and I know it's the little things, but as a lifelong pet owner, it's I really love it. So anyway, yeah, so what would you guys like to talk about? So one thing I just want to throw out there, the retreat for the summer is now public. It's out on Facebook. If you see anybody respond to the post, and Ellen, thank you very much for responding to someone who had questions. And any of you who were there last year, if you see somebody who has a question, I super appreciate you chiming in, and just letting them know, what it was like, what your experience was like. So yeah, so it's out there, and we'll just see how it goes. Spaces are filling up. And if you are on this call, and you have any questions or are interested, let us know. You should have received the initial email I sent last week, because it went to the perfect connection. So 15, Nikki. So 15 people so far. And we'll see how that goes over the 2 days. So yeah. So what would you guys like to talk about? Last week we touched on sort of reframing that concept of wellness or self-care. And and I think one of our observations at the end of that is that could be a topic just on its own, right? And how parents resonate from that. So with that topic, especially when they're under stress. And for those of us who also have, it's everybody have stress in our own lives. How do we resonate with that topic if somebody comes to us and says, well, just meditate, right? It's like, take care of yourself. So that's one topic if you'd like to talk about it, but I want to address first, anything that you've brought in today that you'd like us to talk about.
Just in regard to last week, Lorraine shared the On Being episode with Krista Tippett, that she interviewed the Surgeon General, and he talked about how to be a healer, and it's excellent. If you guys want to listen to it, it was really encouraging. It's encouraging to know that there's a leader up there who's getting what we do all the time in our roles. And it's, it was a lot about loneliness too, and about our wellness. So just wanted to share that for those who maybe weren't here last week, and I could share it in the chat. I think I have a copy here.
Yeah, I think that
would you, because I saw that fly past, but I didn't grab a hold of it, and I would be so grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, Sarah.
Thank you.
What were some of the main points or takeaways from that, Greta?
Well, I could pull out my
Not to
notes.
put you on the spot.
have my
I'm just
notes,
thinking
but I
for
don't have
people
them
who
up.
are hearing it
Okay,
and know it's a
I
Surgeon
love
General, or if they haven't
this.
heard on being before.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is why I love this group, because I took notes too, Greta. Like,
I
not
just have to find
everybody,
them.
not everybody in my family like understands why I have to take notes all the time. One of the first quotes that I took down is, healing is to listen, to learn, and to love. And I was just like, I love this guy.
Mhm.
I'm still looking, sorry.
Well, while you're looking, Greta, loneliness has come up for me recently. I've heard Vivek Murthy on other podcasts. I'm trying to remember which ones now because he does make the circuit, I think. But I can only imagine with Krista Tippett what she's able to draw out. Like, she's amazing too. So, and yes, isn't it encouraging to know that there are like thoughtful, kind, like human-centered people in our government? And Flusterclux, which some of you know and love along with me, she's been talking about loneliness too the last 2 weeks. Last week, Friday, she comes out on Friday, was loneliness in kids. And this week is loneliness in grown-ups. So I will drop those in the chat too, in case anybody wants to pull this thread even further, because it's like the opposite of connection, significance, and belonging, right? And it is so important, I think, to spend time thinking about.
Can I read just a quote from him? It's a little long,
Please.
but it's one of the ones that I copied off of the transcript. Okay. My belief, this is our Surgeon General. My belief is that we need to be a nation that is kind, where people take care of one another, where people step up for one another because they can, and because they know that we are all better off when we are all, in fact, better off. And I want us to be a nation where people are generous with one another, where they recognize that there are times that all of us are going to be in need, where all of us may stumble and fall, but we can help each other up. I think we've got to be a nation that fundamentally recognizes what strength really is. Our greatest source of strength comes from, I believe, our fundamental ability to give and receive love. I think we've got to be a nation that fundamentally recognizes what strength really is. We have to give people permission and the encouragement to feel love, to cultivate it, to prioritize it. Because to me, it is a backbone of good policies, good programs, and a strong society. I think that one of the most tangible and practical places we can start is by rebuilding social infrastructure in our country. Well, I could go on and on. I mean, I've got more. I've got a lot more. Hello. Drop the mic.
It was so good,
So
wasn't
good.
it?
So good.
So
Sorry.
here's another quote. Small acts of kindness are radical acts of defiance.
Oh.
And then this one harkens back to Becca and Nikki, what you brought up, and just know, I think one of the big challenges in parent ed is when we have to face our own vulnerability and our mistakes. And he says, the wise people I have spoken with, it is, and I must have missed a little something here, but he says, it is how they have integrated their vulnerabilities that has made them wise and respected. And so, and it's like, that was encouraging to me. Like, okay, I can't ever be a perfect parent. And I tell my parents that, but I don't always believe it myself, right? But how do we integrate our vulnerabilities? So if you get a chance, truly, it was just so good. It was so good. And I bought Krista Tippett's book and
Of course. Oh, yes. All the things. Vivek Murthy for president. Like, come on. Love it.
So my question, when I hear this is because I too appreciate when there's somebody in a leadership position, because it makes me hope that that person's own ways of administration, like demonstrate that compassion. It certainly models it, and that kind of thing. So there's kind of the trickle across, trickle down kind of thing. And I'm not being pessimistic. My question though is how to get that across in this culture of so much division, and we have lost, part of the sense of connection. The ability to connect is also trust, right? Trusting other people with our own vulnerabilities, and trusting that they'll have us, that they won't use us in some way, or harm somebody that we love, or whatever trust is. But that is earned, right? That takes time, and we have so many forces around us that, if anything, destroy that, right? Is the immediate response to things is so counter, so negative, so defensive, so wounded, and so protective that, again, I think it's why I value the work that we all do, because it starts very early to help model kindness and caring and community, with families and with children. But then I think about all of these structures in place, and as the Surgeon General in a very visible position, right? I mean, he must see that all the time, right? And the challenges he must face. And I think about this with some people who are Buddhists, who are also in highly visible administrative positions, and people who practice kindness and passion. And yet the people that they work with, the structures they work with, are almost designed to work up against that, right? And to disseminate division and distrust. So I'm not being negative. It's just the sadness, I think, of that reality, because his message is so incredibly powerful and important. And it is very heartening to hear of somebody in such a visible position have, that kind of belief and embodiment of it. So I guess, I don't know, I just am hopeful that there's something, incremental change or something.
He did give like 4 strategies. If it's like kind of gives a little bit, this is just 4 that he gave that day. 4 strategies to connection in social settings. And he suggests 15 minutes a day connecting with someone you care about. Not necessarily those living in your home, but someone else outside your home. Give full attention. Of course, he talked more about each one of these. Giving full attention. I love even that Nikki talked about that, how we have her full attention today when she was last week like distracted. And find opportunities to serve others. I love that. I love that. Forge a connection and bring self-worth into the picture when we do that. And then he said moments of solitude, and then he went and he gave a little meditation moment as well. So those were his 4 little strategies that he suggested. And I shared some of these things this week, actually, because I am that last in, first out kind of person. So I bring to my families, listen to this. This is awesome. And one of the things that one of the moms said, she goes, that's so smart, because if you start right here and this community builds and gets strong, then one of those people might have another little community, and they can like bring that there, and they can resonate with those people. And it just feels, it harkens in me that old commercial that says, and they told 2 friends, and they told 2 friends, and so on and so on, right? It kind of harkens to how how society works. And I don't know, that was an encouragement to me, that she's like, yeah, let's do this, Anyway, it was a good week, but I'd encourage the podcast, and I love Krista Tippett, love her.
Well, and this just underscores, I mean, the reason that I wanted to do the community building workshop, at Menafee, because it doesn't get, in education, I don't think we do talk about it enough, right? And it is so powerful, and ECFE is such an incredible model of building community as part of adult education and as part of early childhood education that doesn't exist in most other spaces. There are other spaces of connection building, and there's other spaces certainly of what's called education. But the fact that you guys weave it together and do it so beautifully, and the conversations we have here really, like help to work through, because a lot of what is brought in here is about conflict and challenge, right? And all those things that can break up community, right? And that as facilitating it, and Ellen, I'm thinking about you with your dad, and but that's the hard work, right? Is sort of continuing to build community and hold community when there are forces that try to tear it apart, so.
Well, and actually you brought him up. He's been gone the last couple of weeks. And this was kind of my little question is, and maybe this doesn't happen to a lot of you because you don't have people who say, I'm just going to say it, stupid things. Like most parents don't say stupid things, but this was stupid. He used the word libtard. And it was weird because there's another mom in the class and they connect. They both have kids. They both there's a mom, she has 2 little ones, and then she has an older stepdaughter who's a 6th grader. And my challenging dad has a stepson who is an 8th grader. So I think they've bonded on that. And this mom was saying that her husband treats his daughter and her boys very differently. And it was bothering her, right? She's like, this gender difference really bothers me. And it just, I don't understand it. She said, because he's super liberal. He believes in women's rights but he doesn't, I can't think of the word for it. And so she was like searching for a word after saying he was liberal. And then my dad goes, oh, he's a libtard. And I was like, oh, come on. And she was like, no, that's not what I'm saying. And so they were like talking over each other. And I was like, I got to say something right now. And I was like, no, I said, we're not going to use that degrading language in here. And then I turned away from him and I moved on to her. So it wasn't bad enough for me to be like, get out. but he said MFer in class, right? At least my kid doesn't say that, right? And then now this, so I never know what's going to come out of his mouth. So I think I handled it well, because it's one of those split second things, but I also want to keep the community, right? And I do have some parents in that class who have kiddos with special needs. So I wanted to make it very clear that language is not allowed.
Correct.
And don't say it again. But so I don't know. I'm just curious, like if you have someone who says something really bad in your class, do you time out? Because if he were to spout off more, I have no trouble asking him to leave. Like, there's the door. This is my classroom and I'm not going to let you talk like that. I'm not afraid to do that. But in the moment, it wasn't bad enough to do that, but I had to say something. Ugh. And keeping the community, right? Like I'm protecting the community. The community needs to know that that's not okay. So curious on your thoughts.
Oh, my inkling first right away goes to that pause that we sometimes have to take. That's like, wow, I really need a pause to think about this because I'm uncomfortable, but we're laying it out on the table, right? I have not had that. And I'm feeling the intensity of that situation.
Me too. I haven't been present for all of the conversations about this guy, Ellen, I think, but it occurs to me that that term, which I refuse to repeat, is one that in certain circles is thrown around without any thought. or consideration for like what it's actually saying or what it really means. It's just, one of those things. And I think you're giving him the hand on it sends a really nice, clear, assertive message like, nope. He may or may not, I mean, you can't control how he responds, but it certainly protects your your command of the classroom and yourself. I like it. I like what you did a lot.
So Ellen, one of the things that we've talked about as kind of a general practice anyway, is sort of community ground rules and setting them, at the beginning of classes, with classes and that. And
I have them. They're
oh,
on my
I know
board.
you do. I know
Yeah.
you do. And
But
well,
this
all
is
I'm
a guy who just does not give two craps about.
Right.
He is there to poke and prod and just be generally, he's there for the shock and awe,
Yeah.
and has been from day one.
Yeah.
But Ellen, I think that's why what you did was perfect. I love the phrase giving him the hand. You didn't engage with it at all. Because I don't know if you saw what I wrote in the chat, but it's just like, if you start engaging, then you're a snowflake and he doesn't have to listen to anything you say. And you're getting into an argument that validates anything that he's saying. It's this, but just shutting it down. Nope, we're not accepting that language here at all.
Yeah.
End of conversation, moving on. I think you didn't feed it, which is,
And it feels weird, but like, I feel like I'm like cutting him off, like I'm squeezing, like no more words from you, which feels
I don't-
feels so wrong, you guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What we do is we get stuff out of people. And then like when we cut somebody off, it feels so weird to try to shut a parent up, which is what I did.
But just like we encourage parents to decide what boundaries are firm for them and what, you know what I mean? You've set a boundary about protecting others and yourself in the class, you know what I mean? So he crossed a boundary. Like Susan's referring to, and you talked about, you've got your group rules. All you're doing is doing your job to make sure that you're not squeezing him. Well, you are, but you needed to.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I brought up the rules, was not that you didn't have a Ellen, but more that it's sort of representing to the full group. We have rules, right? And what I'm doing is enforcing them. And I think it's also good modeling, for parents at home, like what are their family rules here? Your whatever. But and it also takes it away from you, that you're policing. I mean, you are, and you're in that role, but you're also facilitating what the group has agreed to.
Well, and it was funny because mom was with him this week, and when he said that, she punched him in the leg. Like, yeah. And she actually missed because he was sitting in a chair with an arm. And when she punched, she actually hit the arm with the arm of the chair first. So I heard like a thunk. And then she like went through the arm and like was like jabbing him in the leg. So she knew that, she was like, yeah, no, we're not going to talk like that. So it wasn't just me saying, hey, cut it out, so, but yeah, you're okay. Yeah. I don't know. And like I said, I don't think a lot of people have to deal with this because most people don't have difficult people like this in their classes. So
it
Probably-
reminds
Go ahead.
Okay. It reminds me of my year with 8th graders. And it's that whole so some of it is like, how do we step back and just realize he is clueless from what you described. He's just clueless to social rules. Obviously, if his wife hit him, she's had to do this before. She's embarrassed by it. Exactly. He's still, and so it's that whole thing of really you, it's like, okay, we're going to cheer you on. You're getting an opportunity to model for the parents how they will parent their child when their child does X, Y, and Z, because he's being inappropriate But I really believe, like, he doesn't get it. And you know, I have one son with ADHD who has said some outrageous things where we've had to say, like, okay, buddy, like, this is considered rude. This, you can't, like, and he's been in, so my kiddo has been in a family that's tried to teach him, like, because he's like, I don't think, it doesn't bother me, so I don't think it's a big deal. And we're like, no, that's not how it goes. And so it's that whole, how do we look at it as this teachable moment? Because I really think it just sounds like he has no idea. And my guess is your other parents also don't know what to do with him.
They've got his number. And
Oh, they do. There you
yeah,
go.
they do. So I don't feel like I
And
have to
that
do a ton of
helps.
protecting. I felt
That's
that in a toddler class, but anyway, so there's a lot, and I don't want to spend a ton of time because a lot of people know that it's been challenging. But thank you. That's a good point, because I am modeling for the other parents, like, no, you can shut this down. It's okay. You don't have to allow this kind of language in your home. So yeah, that's a good point.
And you know, what I would try, I've had a few really hard parents over the years. I had one who chewed snus during class, and it was a one-on-one thing, and she would spit the snus, and like
What is that?
She was like chewing tobacco
Oh.
and spitting it into a bottle, and we had to talk about what was appropriate and not appropriate. She swore all the time. She said she hated her child, and the child's in the room. I mean, I dreaded it, but she made progress. But I had to realize, like, she's here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is part of what we're here for, is we're here for these hard parents, right? And if he's coming, we're going to hope something is changing. And right? Like, I'm convinced you're going to rub off on him. So carry on.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Lorraine, because, you know, I think that there's a number of challenges where parents are breaking rules that are explicit that we have set, right? And they can be as outrageous as Ellen's example, you know, and it's hard because it does feel like you're not working with adults or you're reminded that, you know, they're at that acting out and posturing and, you know, kind of trying to jockey for power and that kind of thing is it's not unusual in adults, and is something that can continue to be challenging in a variety of ways. I mean, this is something that, and this was, I think that whole group facilitation and getting into challenging situations is particularly a topic that people have asked me about a lot. And I think, you know, we can explore that. I do want to, Abby, do you mind?
Yeah, we can move on. Like, we can move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we kind of pivot to Abby's
Yeah,
related?
and I want to do that, and that's what I was just going to do.
Good.
So Abby, would you mind, because your question, I think is, well, I think we would all agree, it's really important, and I have opinion, so.
Yeah, I can just read it. So how do you guys handle families talking about drinking? I have a particular class where drinking to cope is always talked about. They aren't trying to be rude, but more silly. Sometimes I worry about others in the class who may struggle with it or know someone that does. And it's more of like oh, I can't wait till 5 o'clock so I can open the wine and just things like that. But sometimes I really don't know if it's appropriate for, I mean, really, we're in a school. So, and I have had moms, or like when Lorraine was my ECFE teacher, we had a mom who was a recovering alcoholic. And so you just think like, I don't know, just parts of me feels like it's wrong to say those things. And I know recovering alcoholics or addicts are around those kinds of conversations all the time. We can't shield it from them all the time, but I want it to be a safe place for everyone in my classroom. And so when those comments are said, sometimes I feel like people might feel uncomfortable.
This happened to me in a class. I had a couple dads who were constantly talking about beer, and then they would start talking about brewing beer. And I had to send an email. I sent an email to the class and I just said, hey, everybody, I get that you enjoy crafting beer. I know that you like to talk about beer, but I said, in order to create a safe space around both children and other parents in the program. And I didn't know of anybody. I was not aware of anybody who was recovering or whatever. I just said, but for the safety and well-being of the classroom, I said, I would appreciate it if you could please keep your discussions about beer making and alcohol drinking outside of the classroom. So, and I got a response back from one of the dads who was like, oh my God, I feel so bad. I'm so sorry. I'm just so excited that there's another brew dad. They were calling themselves the brew dudes. Like it was kind of cute. And I love that they were bonding over it, but I just had to send out a message and just say, all done. And then one of the moms who would come with her husband, sometimes she's like, I told him to stop talking about it and he didn't listen. So they took it in good stride, but I had to put a stop to it. And it felt, an email felt most appropriate.
I think most parents who are talking like that, like it's slipped their mind. It's something that is not registering in the moment that, oh, this might be problematic for someone. And so gently drawing their attention to the potentially this could be really hard. I know you're just joking around and there's nothing wrong with being a brew dad or with enjoying a glass of wine with your dinner, what have you. And we're not judging the use of alcohol here. We're just saying joking about it could potentially be traumatizing for someone or a really difficult thing that makes them not feel safe here. So like, I think most parents, if they're not problematic members of the community, most parents are going to just kind of appreciate that you drew their attention to it because they're not going to want to be someone who's making someone else feel unsafe. Hopefully you've already developed that kind of atmosphere in your classroom where people do feel safe and that the parents really appreciate that and want to keep that going.
I'm
Abby,
relating
do you
this.
think- Oh, go ahead, Nikki.
You can go, Lorraine. I'll go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, Abby, if this is the kind of thing that you could even just bring up and say, you know, I've been thinking about this and, or the topic came up at my Friday discussion. You don't have to say that you brought it up and just say, and I've realized like sometimes this comes up. You could even, you know, piggyback it with kind of the whole wine and women culture like Sarah has brought up and just kind of put out there, like, I'm thinking it's something we want to be aware of. You know, I know it comes up sometimes. I know, you know, that kind of, so that's one way where you just like, one of the programs I've been involved with talks about never waste a good trigger. And so it's like, okay, if this has triggered something, so it's like use it as a teaching opportunity. And then the other part would be if it's particular parents, if you think that it's worth a one-on-one conversation with them, you know, when at beginning or after, you know, I'm not sure if it warrants that or not, but you could kind of feel it out.
I'll jump in. Of course, I was eating again. And that's why I muted my camera. Sorry. I'm thinking about this in a broader term, and this is really fitting and timely for me in hearing this conversation because in our district, staff are being asked to kind of grapple with this term, racial harm. And I hadn't thought about racial harm in the way that it's being brought to us. My initial thought when I heard racial harm was like, why would I as a facilitator do something that, you know, using words or things that could cause harm or that we know would. It's not getting at that at all. It really, I'm going to read to you. One of the things that was on here that I think we're all relating to is how comfortable do you feel with initiating a conversation with a colleague, coworker, we could insert group member, right? About racist acts or language, because what they're really getting at with racial harm is the harm that comes from words that might be used within the hallway. When more so in our elementary, middle schools and high schools, right? When kids are using these words, but it is happening in our classrooms too. It is happening in early childhood. And so there's some great questions on here for us to consider. And I'm thinking about, and this was brought to us in terms of racial harm, but I'm thinking about the words that we're using, like what Ellen shared, and you know, sensitivity, and Lorraine, to your point, you know, being able to say, you know, I'm thinking this is something that we could use to raise awareness or sensitivity around, hopefully would bring, you know, comfort to people if that is something they're navigating, like the alcohol question or comments. But now my thinking about this is so broad because it was brought to me and we've been kind of thinking about this racial harm. But it is really inclusive of so many other things. We're thinking about, we're all learning about ways that this word racial harm or what we're talking about can show up in our classrooms and buildings. What are some things you can do to help yourself adopt an attitude of learning when potentially racist language or acts are mentioned to you, and all of these other things. So now I'm curious to hear too, what, in addition to the word Ellen brought up, or sensitivities around people that are navigating sobriety or other things, what the categories are that you feel like this also relates to, whether it's racial harm or other things that you feel like have come up in groups.
Something that comes to my mind, Nikki, as you're sharing that is in my grandparent groups about age and their lived lives and their children and their relationships with their children, as well as my other classes where they're talking about their parents and that sort of thing. So that's that recognition there about families of origin and those sorts of things, how we could be sensitive to some of those pieces for people.
Sorry, I realized I didn't have myself muted. Becca, that's a difficult situation that came up in one of my strongest community groups. They're typically so open to each other and very supportive, and even through differing ideas. But one of them brought up a question about gender norms that got a very I don't want to call it divisive, but for the group, you could see there were varying opinions, and some people were so strongly that it came out of the blue for other parents. Where did that come from that they're so, so that created a couple of challenging weeks, because of course that happened close to the end of my time with them. And so I decided, even though some of them said, we don't have to continue this discussion. They were that uncomfortable having a group member feel so far one way that they didn't think they wanted to continue the discussion. And but this week, I don't know. I decided we needed to a little bit. Where could, because we've spent, this particular group knows each other. They are almost the same people for several years. We're a small rural area, but we've been talking about community and those kinds of lessons and building a sense of belonging and all those, and they've been doing such a great job with that topic. So this felt like it kind of came out of the blue, but that's a topic that's come up recently for my group, one of my groups. Sorry.
Greta, I was even thinking your ACEs conversation ended up, it's the same kind of a thing where, I wouldn't have thought of it.
Yeah, that surprised me, the ACEs piece. And for those who didn't know about it, I brought someone in from the county to talk about ACEs to the grandparents
Hmm.
and was told the next week by two or three of them that it was the worst experience that they've had because they were not prepared for that. Yeah, so it can jump out at us and be surprising sometimes.
They weren't prepared for what about it?
Their own trauma and
Oh boy.
their
boy.
own
Okay.
stuff, and then that they may be being grandparents now have children and grandchildren that are experiencing things because of their parenting, and it's too late. They can't change the ACEs they gave their kids, things like that. And some of them didn't even go into it. They just said, I can't say anything, but you need to know. And so there's another one to be really aware of.
Oh, wow.
It was
I
hard.
mean, painful discomfort.
Very painful.
And I don't know that it's ever too late.
No, right? I mean, you try to give the encouraging word and you try to give, but yeah, I was, you go into something thinking, this is some information so you can share it with your kids and how one supportive person in this child's life can make a difference. And I'm going on all these. Oh, anyway, yeah. So
I'm sorry.
It was a really, really tough week. They're still here. They're all still coming and we've made ground forward, but yeah. So
Yeah,
that's why
I thought a lot about that this week. I mean, I have a lot of friends who are grandparents and just kind of wondering, just been curious about that. I wouldn't have expected that from your group. And it's like, again, how do we get curious about it, and what would they want instead? Like, why? I don't understand why they wouldn't want to learn that, but it's painful.
Yeah. I mean, I am sure, because you already talked about one important adult that you have, or in some way, shape, or form, shared all the research about positive childhood experiences and resiliency too, right? So I'm with Lorraine. I think there's tremendous value. Like, don't waste a good trigger.
Well, I will say it's that, that I've talked to a number of people in my own generation that feel like their kids may have sit through something like ACEs, and then they'll attach that to their own parenting, and then they come to their parent and they'll say, you really sucked as a parent, and because of that, you really screwed me up, and and I'm facing this, and this, and and so much of it is unconscious, and so much of it, or it could be, contextual, or the whole 9 yards, right? So I can see it. I easily can understand the reaction. What I'm thinking is two things. One is that sometimes people are trained in the content and not in the sensitivity of delivery. And so they're presenting what seems to be very rational information, very important information, and they get positive strokes all around, about the importance and the value of the stuff. It's evidence-based, yada, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they're in a particular group and it lands in a different way, and they don't really have that sensitivity of understanding particular groups or the ways to handle it, which gets me to point number 2, which is never waste a good trigger, is again, coming back to our earlier discussion of creating a community, creating a context of trust and openness. You can talk about the triggers. Like you said, Greta, they're coming back. So that's a great opportunity to mine that conversation about, this was challenging for you. Let's talk about that, and how might it impact your relationships with your children or with your grandchildren or whatever. But there are very few spaces where you can have those conversations, right? There's just that trigger, that response, and then and this gets into the loneliness, then it's just sort of, held inside. And this gets to see, everything is linked. And then that's also that integrating our own vulnerabilities, right? And so in our facilitation, as we've integrated our own, and people know that they can trust us because we're not judgy, because we've lived through it. Like we've been judged too, Becca, go ahead.
I think judgment is the big word there. I think that is the reason why
as soon as people feel judged, they can't learn anymore.
Yep.
The wall just it's a self-defense mechanism. They have to, right? So if that's all that they were hearing from the ACEs presentation, of course they had really bad, this is the worst thing we've ever had, because they haven't felt judged there before. I'm sure with you as their facilitator, they haven't experienced that. And it's like, this is no longer a safe place, right? That's what they're feeling. And so if you can find a way to have these brave or difficult conversations without the judgment piece. So like, but that has to be like such an important part of the message. It's like, we're not talking about what's already happened. We're talking about what do we do going forward and how can we do the best for our kids, for our grandkids, you know, still a judgment-free zone. And how do you do that when you're talking about really hard things that maybe are part of people's past?
Right. And again, kind of pulling these things together and what Ellen was saying, you know, and so people also then see when you have somebody like her dad, right, is that across the long haul, he's not judged. I mean, he's judged by the group, but he's not kicked out, right? I mean, he still is embraced as a member of the group. And so it's just like, this is not a place that you're going to be kicked out of. You know, this is not a place that you're going to be judged. This is a place for challenging conversations, because where else can you have them? But if we don't have these challenging conversations, we can't really grow. So
it's too late, like it's 1:05, but maybe put a pin in for next week. That I heard another podcast this week that really got me thinking, and it was Scott Galloway was the host.
Oh.
Anybody know Scott Galloway? Oh, wow, Helen. Okay. Lorraine, yes. Okay, so I have two girls. I parent two girls. I have spent a lot of time thinking about empowering women and developing women and girls and blah, 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 blah. And pretty much every time I heard about developing boys and men, I'm like, oh, whatever, they're fine. Okay, just be really quick and clear about this. Like there's more to say, but whatever. Anyway, so I heard Scott Galloway this week talking. I'm like, I think I really need to rethink that. Like I know that our boys and our men are not okay. I know that. But the way that he articulated, and I'm not with him on all of it, but I was like, this is really got me thinking. So maybe, and I'm thinking about Ellen's dad and the two references in this conversation about the wives, like correcting their men because the men are just not, they're like obtuse, like they're just not getting the women being more skilled in connecting and relationship building and sustaining, you know, like reading cues, all the stuff, and loneliness. So anyway, I would love to talk more about it at some point.
I would go there with you too, Sarah. I'd love to hear what this group has to say about it, because I've been listening to some of his interviews going on.
Oh, good. I'm so excited.
I think he's the one who talked about third places other than work or home that don't cost a lot of money, where you can meet with friends or strangers, and COVID squeezed out. I'm pretty sure he's the one who came up with that, but COVID has squeezed out the third place for so many people. So it used to be, you know, home and school and church and book club and whatever. And as society, especially with the internet, we've squeezed out that third place for people to meet and gather, especially for young men. And that this may be tied into that third place where young men don't have that place to go. And that's why we have so many 30 and 40-year-old men living in their basement at home, you know, and struggling.
And shooting people.
Yep. And struggling in life, just in general. So yeah, he's on Twitter as well. He's fantastic. And I know about him because my husband's a huge fan.
Oh, okay.
You got to hear what Scott Galloway said today. He's brilliant.
Oh,
so
cool.
Sounded pretty smart to me. My first exposure.
Yeah.
Wednesday. I was like, oh, oops.
Whose podcast was he on?
He was on In the Bubble.
In the Bubble. Thank
In
you.
the bubble. So, okay. So I'm going to give homework for next week. I don't think I've ever done this. So we will get, I'm going to put this
having
on
PTSD from my master's degree.
No grades. So if Sarah or Ellen or any of you who resonate with this dude So Lorraine, is this, he's on this? This is him? Scott Galloway, great, okay.
Mhm.
And is there, so there's like episodes of his podcast or?
Well, okay, so here's a CNN thing. So pretty arguably mainstream, just little snippet about him. And then I don't know, Ellen, does he have his own podcast?
No, I think he's just a guest.
Okay,
Okay, well, I
he-
will
Yeah.
share this one that I.
okay,
listened
so
to.
in part, our homework for next week, Sarah, like earmuffs, like, is to explore this
does.
dude.
Sorry,
And-
he does have a podcast. I just found it. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm putting it in the chat. He has a podcast.
Okay, good.
Oh, yeah. Lorraine beat me to it. You're so
Yeah.
good.
Sorry. Yeah. I
So
was,
this
I was
is-
like, no, he has a podcast. I was like,
So explore this dude, like look into him, listen to one of his podcasts and come back next week with your impressions. And we'll
FG Media, okay.
have a little bit of a confab about him, okay? He
That
sounds
sounds exciting.
good.
You should see if he'll come.
Masculinity and media from
Ooh.
February. Yeah. Sometimes he
Yeah,
goes
the Prof
into-
G pod. Okay, I'm following him.
Mhm.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm gonna put
great.
that in the, I'm gonna
Just
put
what I
that
need is another
link.
podcast.
I'm gonna add that link
I know.
also in the, and then also, I'm trying to, in our YouTube things, to include a few more links of things that we've come up with and that sort of thing. But yes, and so if my aging brain somehow forgets this, those of you who will be back next week, remind me that that's one of the things we're going to talk about. Okay.
Okay.
Well, thanks everybody. This was fabulous once again. And I hope you have a 7 out of 7 happy week and filled with sun. Oh, and we're going to be in May. So we will tune the
Yes.
calendar.
Cinco de Mayo.
Yet another month. What?
Bring your chips and salsa.
There you go.
go that Mayo.
Not that we're appropriating
Margarita drinking.
anything.
No, you're right.
That's
I know.
great.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. Yeah, but or it'll be just May 5th, or but it'll be May. So,
Right.
all right, everyone. Have a great week. I love you all, and thank you so much for being here today.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.